On the subject of normal capacity magazines becoming legal or illegal, I may have spoken too soon. When I talked about the Duncan case and the ruling against us by the Ninth Circuit Court, I said it would take a miracle for us to continue to have magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, even the Freedom Week magazines. I was wrong. So let's talk about why. Or I was right and a miracle happened, but really it was just some paperwork. I'm not sure it was a miracle. So here's what happened. The Duncan lawsuit, which is suing to get rid of the magazine ban. So California has a ban on magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. It was a ban on purchase, selling, importing, taking possession of, but it wasn't a possession ban. But then state of California, in their infinite wisdom, also instituted a possession ban. It didn't matter when you got them. That was 2019, and we got 2019. We got Freedom Week. Judge Benitez, St. Benitez. This is where we discovered him. He said, "Hey, you know what? This thing's unconstitutional. Go to town, get your magazines." And there were like over 1 million magazines sold in that 1 week. Well, then the Ninth Circuit Court put pressure on him and said, "Hey, you need to stay this decision, your injunction specifically." And what that means is that he got to put it on hold. Well, the state of California appeals it. So he said, "Okay, fine. The decision is on hold." Okay, but the injunction stays in place. So if you purchased magazines during that week, or if you just owned magazines legally that week, and they held more than 10 rounds, then they're completely, totally legal for you to use, carry, go to the range with, whatever. So that's been working its way up and down the courts. And most recently, it's about 3 weeks now. 3 weeks ago, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, that's a panel of 11 judges, said, you know what? This thing does comply with the Second Amendment. You can ban magazines. Now, they're woefully wrong, and we don't agree with them in any way. It was a pretty ridiculous decision, but it definitely put us in danger, because once that decision happens, the injunction goes away. Well, the process is you basically have 3 weeks until the order goes back down to the judge, the original judge, which would be Benitez. And Benitez has to follow what the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals says. Well, right in the nick of time, just a couple of days prior before that 3-week deadline, attorney Paul Clement, who you may know from a lot of big federal Second Amendment cases, wrote a request saying, "Hey, we're going to take this to the Supreme Court. We think the injunction on the enforcing this law so that mags are illegal, we think that injunction should stay in place. Basically, we think that as long as you had those magazines during Freedom Week, that you should be exempt from enforcement of this law, meaning they're legal. You can carry them. You can go to the range with them. You can possess them. Everything's good to go for now." Interestingly enough, it went unopposed. The state of California did not oppose it. They didn't fight back. So the Ninth Circuit Court said, "Okay, fine. You have 90 days. And within that 90 days, if we hear from the Supreme Court's clerk that, yes, you're trying to appeal this to the Supreme Court, you're good to go. But if they don't tell us within 90 days, then boom, mags are illegal again." Well, they're definitely going to appeal this thing. It's going to go to the Supreme Court, or at least they're going to ask the Supreme Court to review it. So that'll happen. Now, how long does that take? Well, once they do that, then the other side has to respond, and then they have to choose when they're going to hear it. This could take months, maybe even years. So for the foreseeable short-term, mid-term future, if you have magazines that you obtained and or possessed during Freedom Week that hold more than 10 rounds, you're good to go. The law is not being enforced. You can carry them. You can take them to the range. You can possess them. You can have them in your home. You cannot buy them. You cannot sell them. You cannot import them. You cannot take possession of them. But if you already had them during Freedom Week, you're good to go. Now, we actually created this cool, handy, dandy little graphic. If you look we're going to have this up on our website, and we have it up on our social media, on Instagram and Facebook. And we dated it down at the bottom to make sure that it reflects, hey, this was as of this ruling. So this tells you what you can and can't do. You can own normal capacity magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. You can carry normal capacity magazines. You can use normal capacity magazines like at the range. But what you can't do, big red thumbs down, you can't buy them, you can't sell them, you can't import them, and you can't take ownership. Like if someone gifts them to you, you can't do that. Now, what does it mean to import? We get that question a lot. The reality is the attorneys I've spoken with are split on what it means to import. Some of them say that bringing any magazine in from out of state is considered importing. Some say, well, it's really only importing if you're intending to bring them into state to transact business, some kind of commerce, like you're bringing them into the state to sell them. The safest answer, obviously, is don't bring them into the state of California. But this has never been tested in court. I'm certainly not an attorney. I can't tell you whether this is or isn't legal. Every cop, district attorney, judge in California is going to think independently and different on this. And I'm guessing in the state of California, it's not going to go your way. So why be the test case? If you're the test case on this, you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars on a potential felony, which is all 50 states and follows you basically for life. It's really, really horrible. So that's what's going on with magazines. I think it's excellent news. I'm so happy about it. I think it's great. I got to tell you, I have a box sitting next to my desk with a 60-round drum and some 15-round Glock mags that were going to go to my nephew in Virginia, and he just lost out. So we get to keep them. There's no need to get nervous or scared. This is legit. This is real. And check our email for more information on that. What do you guys think about that?
It's amazing. It's great.
Yeah. It's good news. On the one hand, I hate that we have to be so thankful for scraps. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that stinks. But what I do like is the fact that, hey, this is working. There's a bunch of different arms of fighting back for the Second Amendment. There's activism, there's lawsuits, there's education. There's all these different arms. And the fact that we're all fighting hard for this is great. And it's working.
So let's say that the Supreme Court clerk gets back to them and says the Supreme Court is, going to, I guess, consider hearing this case. Then we're good until the Supreme Court decides?
Actually, it's even a little bit broader than that. So the clerk from the Supreme Court will get back to the state of California and say, hey, you know what? Their request has been received. So then the Supreme Court will spend months.
They don't move that fast.
Years deciding.
Yeah. The only reason I think they might move that fast or move faster than normal is they've already commented on this case. They've already said, hey, you guys need to revisit this because this is not what Bruin says. So maybe that'll speed things up. But the Supreme Court clerk, they just have to say, hey, you know what? Request received. Boom. Injunction stays in place. And then they got it. Like I said, they got to hear from the state of California. They back and forth and blah, blah, blah. And then at some point, the Supreme Court will decide to hear it or not to hear it. If they decide to not hear it, mags are illegal. If the Supreme Court says we're not going to hear this case, then boom, normal capacity magazines in California are illegal. If they decide to hear it, it's going to take months and months and months. Then they'll hear it, they'll issue a decision, and then we'll have to see.
So what if the Supreme Court clerk doesn't say that it's been received? Is that a possibility? Does that happen?
I mean, the only way that would legitimately happen is if the Duncan case attorneys didn't request,
I see,
for the Supreme Court to review it.
If some paperwork was missed or something, perhaps.
So those attorneys have one freaking job right now, and it's like
don't let us down.
No, but there's not an attorney in the nation that forgets to ask the Supreme Court to review their case. So, it'll probably take a little bit of time. I don't know if they're going to do it on day 5 or day 89, but it'll get done before day 90. If it doesn't, that's there's just very little chance that they focus on other things than asking the Supreme Court. So they'll get it. The Supreme Court will acknowledge. Ninth Circuit Court will say, okay, good to go. And then then it's kind of in the Supreme Court's court.
Awesome.
The ball is in the Supreme Court's court. Okay. Hey, thanks for watching Gun Owners Radio. I hope you loved that clip. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and follow us on social media. And check out our website at gunownersradio.com.